Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast, where you'll discover business, mindset, and leadership strategies to put your music business on autopilot. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana Claure, pianist and former university professor turned seven-figure entrepreneur dedicated to empowering artists worldwide. Whether you're a seasoned musician or other creative entrepreneur, this podcast is your guide to financial, artistic, and lifestyle freedom. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana Claure, pianist and business strategist for musicians. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is time. One of the things that I hear so many musicians struggle with and complain about the lack and find themselves in a mindset of scarcity is around the concept of time. Whether or not you have time for what you need to do, whether you're able to reach your dreams, whether your time allows you to do it or not. And I'm hoping that after listening to this podcast, your relationship with time will be seriously reconsidered. And you're going to find that, in fact, when you approach time management with a lens of abundance instead of scarcity, when you approach time management with a feeling of ownership and accountability instead of feeling that you are always at the mercy of whatever is thrown at you and the situations that you need to react to, when you decide that you are going to intentionally design your life and your time and manage it with extreme protectiveness, extreme scrutiny, and extreme rigor and focus, you're going to realize that you actually have more time than you even need for completing the tasks that are most important. So let's take a step back before we move into this and really understand, why is time something that is constantly feeling elusive, that people are struggling to manage? And this notion of, oh, I don't have enough time to do this. It's because oftentimes we are spending 80% of the time that we have on the wrong things. If you've heard about the Pareto principle before, the 80-20 rule, that only 20% of our outcomes, only 20% of our inputs achieve 80% of our results, right? So chances are right now, if you're a busy musician entrepreneur and you are struggling to find the time to make changes in your business, restructure your business, create new initiatives, build a different income stream, chances are you're telling yourself, oh, I wish I could do that, but I just don't have the time. But I'm here to tell you that the first step in switching out of that dysfunctional perspective is realizing that most of what you're already spending your time on right now is not necessary for you to truly reach your goals. And if you could switch your priorities and if you could gain clarity around what you actually need to spend your time on, you will actually see that the results that you need in your life are going to come from strategic implementation and not just continuous repetition of redundant tasks that you may just find yourself in the inertia of your life. And obviously it helps to have references of what are the better alternatives and the better ways to spend your time on, and what are the better, more productive activities to spend your time on. But the most important thing here is that you just start telling yourself a different story. You just start telling yourself, what if it's not about having lack of time? What if I just simply have lack of clarity? What if instead of wanting more time, I focus on getting a clear idea of what I want in my life and in my business, and what is the information that I need to obtain? Who do I need to bring around me in my world to be able to make the changes that I want to make? Oftentimes, it's not so much a matter of what, but it's a matter of who. Perhaps you are postponing delegating more in your business, and you are holding on to certain tasks and activities that you feel only you can do them to the degree of perfection that you want. And so instead of using your time on more profit producing activities, like creating content, like communicating and finding solutions for the businesses that you're working on, or the people that you're trying to solve, instead of creating higher level activities that will ultimately be more productive and profitable for your business, you are bogging down your time doing administrative tasks that require a lot of manual labor, and tasks that are simply not the most productive use of your time. And you are actually costing your business growth because you are doing things that you should not be doing. And then, of course, the result after that is that you're telling yourself, I don't have time. But the truth is, it's not that you don't have time, is that you may be accidentally, inadvertently mismanaging the time you have simply because of lack of focus, lack of clarity, and a lack of priorities followed by strict implementation and accountability. So, one of the concepts that I love really understanding are not just the Pareto principle, but also Parkinson's law, which is the idea that when you are given an allocated amount of time, chances are you are going to spend it all. You're going to use all the time that you are given when you have a specific task to complete. So, I'm sure that you could relate to perhaps having had a project or something big that you were working on, and maybe procrastinating towards the end of your timeline, and very just at the last minute, maybe the last 24 hours, you crammed it all in and you got it done in the very last moment, right? That's an example of Parkinson's law, of you using all the time you're given for a specific task and yet not really taking action until the very last minute when you knew the deadline was looming. And so one of the things that I like recommending is, what if you could apply the Parkinson's law in your favor and give yourself 50% of the time that you would ordinarily give yourself for the tasks that you are working on. So if you are used to spending 4 or 5 hours a week on social media, creating content, adding value, building your online presence, what if you were to tell yourself that you just have 2 hours a week now instead of 4 or 5 hours? Could you potentially be more effective? Could you challenge yourself to get more done in less amount of time? I know personally, the journey of transitioning from being full time in my music school when I lived in Miami between the years 2011 and 2016. My husband and I were both full time in the business, working in the business, teaching piano one on one lessons every afternoon for 4, 5, 6 hours a day, running the business, recruiting faculty, dealing with the parents and the payments and all the things, right, that our business required from us. And it was extremely draining, and we were very burned out, but we were working as hard as we thought we could. And yet our income ceiling would have pretty much a plateau that would be very much stable and predictable every single year, and it would not really grow from where we had been able to bring it after the first 5 years. And when we decided to move to Texas, when I was appointed the position at the University of North Texas, all of a sudden we had to focus on making the business that much more efficient so that it could run without us physically there. And we made a series of changes in the systems and the procedures. We were able to restructure the school so that we could move to Texas and the school would continue be running itself basically in Miami, Florida. And what we realized after the first year of trial and error, just like learning how to run a business remotely, which was already a huge challenge and a lot of lessons learned and mistakes were made. But after that first year of just like learning by fire, so to speak, the business actually grew to a point where it was more profitable and efficient without us being there running it on the day to day as we were before. So one of the things we would joke about is saying, one of the best things we did for our business was remove ourselves from it and work on it instead of in it. And that was a very typical example of, while we were there and in that kind of inertia of just working day in and day out, the business was at a standstill. It wasn't really growing enough. And yet, when we were forced to be much more efficient and to make things run a lot more strategically because we were not going to live there anymore, the business actually grew more. So that was a personal journey for me to not just think about this relationship of time and task management, but also to embody what it would look like to build businesses with this vision from the very beginning, rather than thinking about how to restructure our school and remove ourselves after 5 years in the business. If I would have known that one day we would be making that switch from the beginning of our journey with our brick and mortar music school, I would have done things so differently. I would have created systems from the very beginning. I would have become a lot more, strategic in the expenses and the things that we committed to financially, etc., because I would have built it so it could run without me from the beginning, right? And so for those of you who right now may be struggling with keeping up with all the things in your life, and you may be wondering, I wish I could change my life. I wish I could restructure my business. I wish I could do things differently, but I just don't have the time right now. The one thing I want you to recognize is that the longer you continue in this mindset of, I just don't have the time to change, you are perpetuating something that is not helpful. You're perpetuating a distorted story that will only keep you stuck in the hamster wheel that you may find yourself in right now. It starts with you shifting your story around time and being able to say, what if I can remove most of what I'm doing and really assess what are the things that actually give me the results that I have. Perhaps you have a group of clients that you're working with where 20% of the clients are the ones actually bringing the majority of the revenue, and you have 80% of your clients who are not really, conducive to your profitability goals in your business. And in fact, they may be very high maintenance, they may be hard to keep up with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Perhaps this is the time for you to reinvent and ask yourself, what could you do to focus more on those 20% of your clients and try to attract more of that type of clientele? And perhaps weed down little by little the 80% of the other types of clients who are not necessarily contributing to the overall growth of your business. And they actually may be very energy draining and time consuming for you to keep up with, right? Or perhaps you're spending time running your business, doing things from an administrative standpoint. Maybe you're spending too much time designing graphics. Maybe you're spending too much time posting on social media yourself instead of delegating. Maybe you are spending too much time doing things in your business that you have no business doing, that you should probably be outsourcing to someone, whether it's a virtual assistant, whether it's an intern, whether it's someone in your organization that could come in and take that off your plate so that you could focus on the more profit producing activities. Where in your business right now could you put yourself a shorter time span? Could you put your own laws to diminish how much time you're spending on those tasks and take a better look at what you could do outside of that to restructure what you're focusing on in your business? Chances are you're going to discover many things around how you're using your time right now and how inefficiently you are acting and implementing the steps that you believe the business needs. One of the things that I hear a lot from musicians trying to restructure their businesses and build online brands is, oh, I need to build a website, for example, right? Oh, I have to build a new website. I need to hire a web developer. And this is kind of like my number one step. If I want to build my business online, I need to create a website. And what I usually say is, well, that's not necessarily the most important thing or the number one priority that you need to focus on when you're building your brand online. Instead, you need to strategize on what is the brand going to look like? How are you going to position your offer? Who are you actually trying to attract? What is the goal? What is the value proposition that you're trying to create in the way you talk about what you do? All these foundational questions need to be addressed before you build a website, right? Because if you don't have clarity around these foundational principles in your business, chances are you're just going to build a website and it's not going to be effective. And then you're going to think it's the web developer's fault or that's a lack of good design, when in fact, the core foundational elements of your business proposition are lacking, right? So these are just several examples of what can happen when you mismanage your priorities and you start shifting your time and attention on things that really do not need to be part of your initial thought process as it goes. So if you are right now in this process of struggling for creating more time in your life and just finding yourself that time is one of your biggest pain points, I hope that after listening to this, you really take some time to think about where are you mismanaging your time in the present moment. Where are you in a constant state of reactivity to things that happen? For example, when people are sending you emails, when people are sending you texts, when you are getting, requests from other people to respond, are you able to block time to be receptive, to be responsive, to be reactive versus time to be in a focused and deep work mode? One of the biggest barriers for really mastering your time is when you don't know the distinction between deep work status, when you're able to really, remove yourself from external notifications and allow yourself to have some time to go deep into your strategic planning, project development, building things, creating things, whatever that looks like, without feeling that you need to be responding to everyone coming at you and having to halt your, high quality, deep work situation in order to just be constantly responding to others. And I know we live in an era where everything is so fast and everyone wants an answer yesterday, and you get notifications, and even our watches, like are pinging us like, hey, someone is whatever. And I had to disassemble all those notifications in my watch, because when I first got it, it was every 5 minutes. It was like, bzz, 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 pinning me for all these different notifications, mirroring what my phone is. So are you able to create boundaries? That's another thing. If you're struggling with time, chances are you need some work on boundaries, right? Are you able to create the right type of boundaries in your day-to-day activities so that you can decide, okay, this is what I'm going to commit to today. Everything else that shows up, I will have a way of putting it on the side and deciding when I'm going to address those things. Like I literally have moments where I'm thinking of things, and when I get asked questions, I ask people for time. I say, can I answer this question later? I will get back to you with an answer to this later. Even if it's a very simple question, if I'm in a mode where I know I need to keep my attention, I'm okay sending people to voicemail. I'm okay not responding, leaving that message unread, allowing people to wait. The last thing you want to feel is being at the mercy of people's expectations. If you've ever felt, why are people so demanding? Why are people not patient? Why don't people give me some chances to breathe? That is not the people's fault. That is your fault. You have to be able to set the boundaries and create the limitations and the space in the way you work. And I talk about this even with my team. I explain to them, listen, in our work environment, the culture that I'm creating for my organization is one in which I don't expect you to be at the available every single moment of the day when I send you a message to be responding to me immediately. I want you as my team member to allocate and time block your day where you have moments where you cannot be interrupted. And trust me, if I need something from you, like it's an emergency, I will just call you on your cell phone. If you see a call from me, like chances are it's urgent. But other than that, in using our internal just project management tools and communication tools like Slack and Monday and all these projects that softwares that we use for team communication, I don't need you to be responding and reacting to these throughout the entire day, because that shows me that you are not giving yourself the right boundaries to manage your time. So I have these conversations at all levels. I have these conversations with myself, finding my own habits that are not serving me. I have conversations with the clients that I help and that I mentor inside our programs. And I have these conversations with my team, really to create this culture of time mastery. I want to inspire you to no longer feel victim of lack of time, and to be feeling a victim of just the circumstances that you have in your life and using that as an excuse not to do what you need to do, or not to take action, or not to make the changes that you know you need to make. Instead, I want you to take ownership of your time and be able to make decisions, have the uncomfortable conversations with whoever needs to listen, create the boundaries, remove the notifications, use a time blocking, system. I've used many different ones in the past. One of the ones that I've really enjoyed is called Timular, that allows you to track and have different color codes and categories throughout your day. And every once in a while, it's a good idea to do an audit, perhaps for like 1 or 2 weeks, where you're tracking basically everything you're doing in the day. And then you can evaluate and assess, how are you actually spending your time? Is it the best use of your time? So taking that moment to just audit, track, and then reflect and reassess and adjust and recalibrate is another great way to hold yourself accountable and to be able to see tangible things that need to be changed, right? So we're talking today about overarching principles of time management. We're talking about the Pareto principle. We're talking about the Pareto principle, the Parkinson's law. Then we're talking about actual tools on how you can track your time, like Timular. We're talking about the mindset of approaching your schedule and protecting your attention throughout the day, disabling notifications, being able to recognize when you are in reactive mode versus in deep work mode. So I hope that with all of this, you now have some information and guidance, and you're excited about relating to your day and your schedule with a new light, with new hope. And you can finally start feeling that your life is in your hands. You are accountable. You can create change. You do not have to just constantly be responding and reacting to life. The time is actually your best friend. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you. Let me know what else you would like for me to share and talk about in this podcast. Until next time, let's prosper together.